Sometimes the strongest step forward is simply admitting you can't walk alone. Once upon a time, in a quiet valley bordered by wide rivers and tall oak forests, there lived a young craftsman named Elias. His village was small, the kind of place where everyone knew each other's names, and life revolved around farming, trade, and tradition. The villagers woke with the sunrise, worked hard in their fields or shops, and ended their evenings around crackling fires, sharing stories. Elias was 24 years old, tall, with calloused hands and eyes that always looked a little beyond the horizon. His father had been a blacksmith, but after his passing, Elias had taken over the family workshop. Instead of forging iron, though, Elias had discovered his gift in woodwork. He carved chairs that felt as if they hugged you when you sat down, and tables that seemed alive with their smooth polish and detailed patterns. But while Elias's craft was extraordinary, his reality was not. His workshop was small and crumbling. His tools were old and often broke at the worst possible times, and worst of all, Elias carried the heavy burden of pride. He believed that if he couldn't do everything by himself, designing, cutting, sanding, polishing, selling, then he wasn't worthy of success. To him, asking for help was the same as admitting defeat. Every night, after long days of work, Elias would sit by the flickering lantern in his shop, staring at a sketch pinned to the wall. It was a drawing of a large furniture showroom he dreamed of building one day. Wide glass windows, shining displays, people traveling from distant towns just to buy his creations. He whispered to himself, one day, this will be real. But life had its way of testing dreams. One afternoon, an unexpected customer walked in. A dignified man named Mr. Kareem, known across the region as a merchant who supplied goods to city markets. He had heard whispers of Elias' talent and wanted a special order. A grand dining table large enough to seat 20 people carved with fine details, sturdy enough to last generations. For Elias, it was the biggest order of his life. The money offered was more than he usually made in 6 months. His heart raced with both excitement and fear. He agreed without hesitation, convincing himself he could do it alone. The first few days went well. Elias sketched designs, chose wood, and began cutting. But soon, obstacles piled up. He realized he didn't have enough wood, and the supplier in the village had raised prices due to demand. He tried to bargain, but left with only half the amount he needed. His saw blade snapped one night, forcing him to waste precious hours fixing it. He worked late into the cold nights, his hands blistered, his back aching, yet he told himself, I can manage, I must manage. But the truth was, he was drowning. One evening, as he sat among half-carved wooden planks, sweat dripping down his face, Elias thought of quitting. Maybe they're right, he muttered. Maybe I'm just a foolish dreamer. I should stay small. Who am I kidding? Just then, his younger sister Layla entered the shop. She watched him silently for a moment, then softly said, Brother, I brought you some food. You haven't eaten since morning. Elias shook his head. I don't have time. The deadline is too close. I can't slow down now. Layla placed the basket on the bench and replied, You don't have to slow down, but you don't have to carry this weight alone, either. Elias frowned. If I ask for help, it will mean I'm weak. I need to prove I can do this by myself. She looked at him kindly. And what will you prove if you collapse before you finish? What will you prove if the dream itself breaks you? Sometimes strength isn't in carrying the heaviest load alone, but in knowing when to share it. Her words lingered, but Elias brushed them aside, stubborn as ever. Days passed, and the pressure grew unbearable. His nights blurred into mornings. His hands trembled from exhaustion. He stopped speaking to neighbors, ignored invitations to meals, and poured everything into finishing the order. But no matter how hard he pushed, the work was slipping out of his control. On the 10th day, disaster struck. A nearly finished tabletop cracked down the middle due to a hidden flaw in the wood. Elias stared at it in shock. He had no spare wood left. His vision blurred with tears. He whispered, "I've failed." That night, Elias sat outside under the cold stars, his mind heavy with defeat. That's when his old neighbor, a retired carpenter named Youssef, walked over. Youssef had seen the lights burning in Elias's workshop for days. Sitting beside him, he said gently, "I know what you're trying to do, son. I did the same when I was your age. I thought I had to prove myself by carrying the world alone. But the world is too big for one pair of shoulders. Dreams aren't built by stubborn pride. They're built by many hands." Elias lowered his head, ashamed. "But if I ask others to help, won't it mean I couldn't do it?" Youssef smiled. "No, it will mean you were wise enough to do what's necessary. Even kings need armies. Even eagles need the wind to fly." The next morning, Elias made the hardest decision of his life. He went to his neighbors and friends and, for the first time, asked for help. To his surprise, they didn't laugh. They didn't mock him. In fact, they were honored. The blacksmith lent him stronger tools. Farmers carried extra wood from their barns. Young men and women from the village came to sand, polish, and help move heavy parts. Even Layla joined, painting delicate designs on the finished pieces. The workshop, once silent and lonely, now buzzed with laughter, energy, and teamwork. And something magical happened. The impossible became possible. The massive dining table was finished, polished to perfection, and delivered right on time. When Mr. Kareem saw it, his eyes widened. He ran his fingers over the smooth carvings and said, "This is not just furniture. This is art." He paid Elias generously and promised to bring more business from the city. That night, the villagers gathered to celebrate. For the first time, Elias looked at his hands, no longer blistered with loneliness, but strengthened by the many hands that had joined him. He realized that asking for help had not weakened his dream. It had brought it to life. Months later, Elias's small workshop grew into a thriving business. He expanded, hired apprentices, and his furniture reached markets far beyond the valley. But what he treasured most wasn't just the success. It was the lesson etched into his heart forever. True strength isn't about carrying everything alone. It's about knowing when to open your hands and let others carry the dream with you. So if you ever find yourself on a journey weighed down by pride, remember Elias's story. Asking for help doesn't make you smaller. It makes your dream bigger.